I went, oh my God, sometimes though, racism and structural inequality, it's a Jedi mind trick. We could have, probably someone from our community could have solved cancer, but we've had to put so much energy into reacting to and fortifying ourselves against. So I kind of wanted to give my kids the gift of going, if you want to, you don't have to do that bit. Dad's done that. You can just sit in the tradition of going, this is who we are.
I'm Suzette Llewellyn.
I'm Suzanne Packer.
We're two actors and, more importantly, two friends who've been through life's ups and downs together over the last 30 years.
In this series, we invite some incredible people to our imaginary veranda to tell the stories of their lives.
This is Verandah Talk. Kwame,
What up?
thank you for joining us here at Red Bull London, and welcome to Verandah Talk.
I love that you invited me. And I love that I can see you young girls in front of me.
You flatterer, you flatterer.
Kwame Kwei-Armah. We have known each other now. Now, my earliest memory of you would be Sheffield Crucible. Would that
Totally.
be correct?
And I think that
Carmen
is
Jones?
1986.
So we're talking nearly 40 years.
Easy.
Oh my goodness.
Easy.
Crazy. But we then worked together on another musical thing, but in a different medium, on telly.
We did.
Melody Makers. And you know, Kwame, I hope you too, got paid so much for that. The royalties on that was crazy. It was more.
I agree.
Yeah,
I vaguely think I remember the
was a
title.
children's.
You shouldn't really. It was a children's thing.
Children's.
Yes.
But of course, they kept repeating it and showing it in schools year after year. So I think I got the original fee 10 times over.
Easy. I remember because at the time when it came out, I wasn't working very much. And I was picking my kids up from school. And, you know, parents would go, oh, what do you do? And you go, oh, I'm an actor, blah, blah. And you working? You'd be like, no. And then one day I walked in and they were, oh, my God, we saw you on there. And I was like, oh, you saw me on what? And it was, I was playing like a silver robot or something.
It was like outer space.
Yeah, but then Casualty.
Oh, gosh. No, you're bringing in another thing again.
Let's not forget that, because, I mean, look, how many years did we cross over for? At least two.
About two, yeah.
At least two. And then you were there for how long?
Oh, gosh, nearly 13. 13
years.
But you had a good run as well.
You know, I did 5.
You did 5.
But 13, lot of
in the
mercy.
end. Well, see, I got
paid up
comfy.
Mortgage, yo.
Listen, let's not get too personal now, but maybe. But I always remember you as a singer first and foremost, Kwame.
Yeah, do you know, it was the most important thing in my life for probably up until I was about 25. But sometimes, you know, life is a circle, not a straight line. Mm-hmm. One of the beautiful things, I kind of gave up. Like, you know, acting at the time particularly was secondary to me. Really, my dream was to be like a singing
Teddy
superstar.
Pendergrass.
You know, I mean, them version, you know? And I had a little recording studio in my house. I one day just woke up in the morning and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. It's not going to happen for me. I'm 25. If it was going to happen, it would have. And so I gave everything away in my recording studio. Probably on today's, it's at least about 100K. And I just said, I don't want anything. And not even that I had money, you know, but I was just like, a really beautiful story, however. The big keyboard at the time was called an M1. And I was broke. And the kind of B flat was kind of raised and I didn't have the money to fix it. So fast forward, people come, they collect, they take everything. I jump forward maybe 25, 30 years, and I'm in Senegal in, what year is it? It's 2010. I'm running a festival there. And I'm asked to go and do this workshop. And I go, yeah, I'll do it. And I walk into this town hall, and I see an M1. And I go, oh my God, that reminded me when I was a musician back in the day, blah, 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 blah. And then I go to it, and it's got a raised B flat. And I was just like, oh, I used to, mine had a raised B flat. And of course, as we did in the days, we would scratch our initials on the bottom. And underneath was my initials, KKA. The keyboard from my house in 1993, I ran into in Senegal in 2010.
Wow, that is
And it was a wonderful, wonderful learning moment for me, because actually my son, Kwame, now is a very successful music producer. He won a BAFTA for composition 2 years ago. He's got nominated for 2 or 3 Grammys. He produces for Stormzy. He's got his own publishing company. So the truth of the matter is that it wasn't my journey. I was due to just start it. It was really for him to fulfill. So although singing and music was right at my core, and I still sing in the shower, of course.
I was going to ask you that, if you do still sing.
Yeah, in the shower. That's it. But it's wonderful when when your child says, okay. And actually, he was better when he was about 15 than I was at my best when I was 25. And so there's something really beautiful about knowing sometimes you start on journeys and they won't be finished by you, but they'll be finished by your children.
That is just astounding. I love that this, however it got there, it ended up where you were going to be and be able to see it and recognize it in this workshop.
It's like, it's mystic.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I've always felt this, even from back in the day when we were babies, when we first worked together, that you've always had that sense of, there's a real spirituality, which I wouldn't necessarily assign to an organized religion. But is that something that you really identify with?
Yeah. I would say that I would describe myself as a person of faith, not necessarily a person of religion. Back in the day when I had to, I would describe myself as an Afrocentric Christian who saw Yeshua through the lens of Ethiopia and not Rome. But even then, I would say that as I move away from anything organized and try and sit in a space of spirit, that I inherited that from my mother. I inherited it from my family. We are all deep in questioning who we are, why we're here, and how we can serve. And I think that's always been placed into me. And I love being able to look outside of myself and know that things are not created by me alone.
I had the very good fortune of meeting your mum.
Yeah.
And I do remember when you introduced me to her, it was like you were honored. And I just thought that was such a beautiful relationship.
My mother was the biggest love of my life. That is not to dismiss the love that I have for my wife or the love that I have for my children. But the Yorubas say that if you were really good in your last life, you get to choose the vessel by which you come into this life through. And if that's so, then man, I must have been amazing in the last life because I came through my mother. And my father was great. But my mother, she passed actually 20 years ago this year, and her spirit has never left me.
It's very important. You mentioned Afrocentricity. Why has that been so important? I mean, if you don't mind me saying, that I knew is Ian Roberts.
Yes.
That's how I was Suzanne Packer, you were Ian Roberts.
Correct.
But of course, now you're Kwame Kwei-Armah.
Yes.
So how did that journey happen?
I think it's really interesting, actually. When we met each other and again, I think I was 18. I can remember getting the call to say, will you come to Sheffield and do Carmen Jones? And I can remember driving into Sheffield and seeing the lights. I can still see it in my brain going, oh my God, this is the job of my life. And I would say at about that moment, I was at the cusp of beginning my political journey. I hadn't quite started yet. I was very race conscious, but I hadn't really done the super work that was ahead of me. And at about 19, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey's bio. And that changed my life. But really what changed my life is that the things that Malcolm was talking about in the 1950s, I was relating to my experiences in growing up in the 1980s and the 1990s. And that seemed mad for me. And I know we use the words now, but what became clear was that white supremacy was structural and that it just loops itself. And it gets better each generation. It would be churlish to not say that. But it is structural. And I think once I began to understand that I was carrying the name of someone who enslaved someone in my family, that became really hard for me to marry my politic and that perpetuation. Because we actually know in any spiritual tradition that the word is the power.
Mm.
We actually know that the vibration that comes from our mouths sets the manifestation. And so for me to continually manifest someone who once owned me or owned my family felt very problematic. So once I realized that I was perpetuating the name of someone who once owned me, I did a genealogical study. I tracked my ancestry back to Ghana. What was really, an ancestor. I want to be really clear. We have multiple ancestors as we go back. And actually, I was there last week with my family as we were at the very slave fort that he left the motherland from and through. And so that became really important to me to also allow my children to not have to think back, but to think forward. I spend a lot of my time, and I don't regret it, studying history, working out who we are, who I am, why the world is the way it is. And I went, oh my God, sometimes though, racism and structural inequality, it's a Jedi mind trick. We could have, probably someone from our community could have solved cancer, but we've had to put so much energy into reacting to and fortifying ourselves against. So I kind of wanted to give my kids the gift of going, look, if you want to, you don't have to do that bit. Dad's done that. You can just sit in the tradition of going, this is who we are.
Yeah, gosh. I love that. And also that you had that awakening at that time. Because the 80s and 90s they were a very, very different time. There wasn't a lot of, obviously, I know because we were all of us born in the UK. So I remember my sister and I going to our library and hunting down books by people, looking for books by James Baldwin, looking for books by anybody who could tell us anything, reading Malcolm. But you did find them. We were very lucky where we lived. We had books. We found these things. And my parents had a few books, but not too many. They had some, they got encyclopedias and things. So you found these, but you were constantly always studying for this connection and finding about who you are. But I really am impressed with your through thought that you didn't just look and seek here for this. You went even further with your investigation to take it to changing your name, doing all that. I think that's very, very powerful. And it speaks to me about somebody who's got a real tenacity and a curiosity and investigation. And I wonder if that's something to do with, because you were also a child actor, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
You were a child actor.
Yeah,
and I wonder if that had, I don't know what age you were when you started, but I do remember the Latchkey Children. I do remember the Latchkey Children. And that was a time when, you didn't see, there weren't many black faces on television. So I wonder if it was anything to, I don't know, maybe it was something you'd gained from your mother, your father, there was a tenacity.
Well, thank you for that. And I would describe it, as I do try to often, as a kind of restless curiosity that was born of the circumstance of my environment. I was born at a time when, as you said, in the 1980s, where every day was I could have died. White youth culture defined itself through right-wing skinheads. And so all of my cousins and all of us were chased, stabbed, cut. It was like, this wasn't even just, hey, let me just think about this as a philosophy. Like every day was existential. And so in a kind of way, my curiosity is to find out, well, why are these guys chasing me? Why do they hate me so much? And they don't know me. Why is my teacher telling me that I've come from a community that can't speak properly, or that we are intellectually inferior? Why, when I'm reading books of history, I find no contribution from those who look like me or those who are of my family? And I think that restless curiosity has driven most of my life.
We hope you're enjoying our conversation with Kwame Kwei-Armah.
Kwame made a contribution to the book we wrote in response to the murder of George Floyd, Still Breathing, 100 Black Voices on Racism.
The book features 100 essays from musicians, members of parliament, poets, artists, athletes, civil servants, doctors, and lawyers. They seek to educate, to bear witness, and to offer hope for a better future.
You can find Still Breathing 100 Black Voices at all good online retailers.
One of the things I love about you, Kwame, is that you've used that curiosity and you've molded it into so many different expressions of creativity. You are a playwright, a renowned playwright. You are an artistic director. You are, as you said already, a musician. You're also a broadcaster. So it's almost as though you never put any limits on your expression. And that says to me incredible boldness, courage. What are you moving into at the moment?
Again, and thank you for your kind words, the check's in the post. I put it back down to a restless curiosity, but also a fierce resistance to being contained. So when I was an actor, I was bored of waiting for, which was then white writers to write parts for me. I don't just mean me, but for our community, so I became a writer. When I was a writer, I got really bored of only white directors directing my work. And so then I became a director. When I became a director, I got slightly bored and restless about waiting for artistic directors to program the stuff that I thought was worthy. So I became an artistic director. And having just graduated from being an artistic director, having left the Young Vic 6 months ago, that curiosity sits with me. So at the moment, I'm part of 3 companies. One is where we've built a physical film and TV studio in London. 24 acres. We have 3 studios up right now. We're going to build 8, build a school, build a tech corridor.
Can I ask who the we?
There's 3 of us, and the company's called The Story Collective, and the studio's called The Story Works. It's in Mortlake, and I'm really, really excited at the prospect of kind of being part of a studio that can create work, commission work, and then say, okay, now let's shoot it at our studios.
Absolutely,
this is
that
screen.
is fantastic.
Yeah,
Screen work.
Yeah.
And I love the title.
I walked with my kids and family through the studios. As I said, Amazon are shooting there right now, and to kind of go, hey, this is our studio. That's the next frontier for me, is television and film. I also write a lot now for Hollywood, and then I'm producing on Broadway. And so really, I've now moved from the subsidized sector into the commercial sector, and I'm sending my energies into producing some stuff, writing and directing some stuff, and then executive producing other stuff.
I imagine there's a lot of freedom leaving the subsidized sector, going into the commercial sector, but also with the commercial sector, I can imagine there are still some corners and boxes are there that you have to sort of battle with as well. Because basically, I think in this country, we do not appreciate the arts in the way that some places, like I know in Ireland, they appreciate. They might not give it money all the time, but
France.
They love the fact that there are artists. They're very proud of the idea. It's not, whereas here it's like a cherry on a cake, whereas other cultures, they understand that is the cake.
Yeah.
That is what makes us, differentiates and makes us that humanity that's important. So just with the difference between what you're finding already between subsidized and commercial, I'm just interested in where you can go yippee and then where you think,
Well, look, the good thing about being in the subsidized sector is that you know that every year some money is coming in. I was an artistic director in a theatre in the United States where there was no state subsidy. And actually it meant that every year you were working almost within a commercial reality, even though it was a not-for-profit, because you had to raise the budget, the full budget every year. I found in the last couple of years that the not-for-profit sector here was operating almost like a pseudo-commercial environment. You had to have stars in your plays. Otherwise, you just couldn't get the box office in. As our funding was being diminished year on year or standing still, that it hadn't been increased in 13 years, our grants, that actually that I was using all of the skills that I now use in the commercial world, in the subsidized world, without getting paid for it in that way. But that's not to say that, oh God, just because we're in the commercial sector, now everything is great. Because at the end of the day, there is no safety net. The only safety net is your ideas, the quality of your ideas and your ability to execute on them. And so it's equally as hard. It's just, there's no hiding place. There's no other thing than I go, look, this piece is a commercial enterprise. Now, the work that I like to do and the work that I do always has something in there that is a message, always has something in there that is about incrementally trying to move us forward as a culture. However, I got slightly irritated at having to work in a commercial framework in a not-for-profit environment.
You said that, Kwame, about, what we've got basically are our ideas. So, I mean, back in the day when we started in BB Crew,
Yes.
I remember we used to put it in an envelope, a script or a whatever, and then we would send it to ourselves. That's how we managed to make sure that it
was
copyrighted.
Back in the
It was
day.
copyrighted.
Yeah.
But of course, now we're in a world of AI.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? When you think about...
A couple of things. I want to big you up for BB Crew. I'll never forget jumping in my car, driving to Stratford to see you guys on it and just leaving with such pride, just having been moved by a piece of work that was both dramaturgically sound and acted in a magnificent way. I literally can remember it. So never should a moment go by without that being articulated. It was foundational.
Thank you.
Look, AI, I'm not frightened of it. And I can't be frightened of it. And part of the reason I'm not frightened of it is because, and it's one of the beautiful things about understanding some parts of history, is that we as Black people have always had to adapt to the latest technology. And then we would reinvent it. And if I think about hip hop, well, you got the double decks that came from disco, and then, my man's there were down in the Bronx, and then they started scratching those things together. And when they were scratching those things together, then they started rapping or DJing, as we used to say, toasting on top of it. And so all of a sudden, all of our Black cultures came together and created a brand new genre. And then we got like the sampler in music. And that came out of Japan. That was applied mathematics. And then we took the sampler and then we went, okay, actually, you know what? We're going to keep juking it and we're going to keep playing with it. And then we redefined the way that was used. And then we would get cars and motorcycles and we would twist them and bend them. That is what we do. That is what we will do with AI. We will find it, we will ride it, we will twist it, and we will recreate in a way that only we can and only we have over and over and over again. I'm not afraid of that.
That is so hopeful.
Yeah.
That is really hopeful because that's not a perspective that we're getting. Certainly, I know Equity is trying to not fight it, but trying to find agreements where we can be compensated. And all of that.
I think those things
all of those things have to be worked out.
And it's there because in the end, it's here.
It's here.
The box is open. It's going to be here. So people will either probably maybe go and see a play and they'll be told that the roots of it or maybe the whole of it is AI. People are only going to decide that they enjoy that or they're not. They're going to see something else that somebody's got some other blood and flesh in, and they'll think something else of it. So I think, but those things about compensation, about acknowledging what's there, it's going to be, in a way, it's a bit like the Olympics, people who take drugs and people who don't.
Listen, I keep coming back to this, and you're absolutely right to say that it is an optimistic worldview. Many will fall by the wayside. Many will be replaced. And our culture will not look the way that it looks today. So please don't let me come over as if everything's going to be great. It isn't. But again, we've lived through multiple technologies. And the last time we were in full employment was enslavement.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
Since then, we've had to hustle, bustle, find our way through. And that is our challenge. Our challenge is, if this new technology is coming, if this new technology is here and is going to revolutionize the way we do art, let's just look at it within that narrow bandwidth, then what's our job? Our job is to have a restless curiosity with it, find our way through it, find our way of our
problem solving.
Correct.
Yeah, and find a way to make it work.
If you were, let's wave a magic wand, and you were Minister of the Arts, what changes would you make?
I don't know. I haven't ever been asked that question. So that's pretty wonderful. It's always hard to look at things objectively and subjectively. And so let me just be subjective. If I were Minister of the Arts, I would want to make sure that funding for the arts really represents the power that we pack in not just soft power, but in real financial power. Subsidies.
As in the global majority.
As in, the subsidies for our museums, our theatres. And we've had some improvement, but really we need to rocket boost that. Otherwise, we will fall behind. We need to invest a lot in the marriage of human ingenuity and AI. who are going to, in one of my companies right now, we're investing in putting people together, technologists and artists together, to see what software they can create. And so
The software to do what?
whatever.
Whoa.
Who knows? That's the magic thing.
Yeah.
I go back to when we first met each other. Let's go to 20. My biggest dream would have been to have a house large enough and to have enough money where I could have an editing suite in one room for the film ideas that I had, a recording studio in another one for the music ideas that I had, a gallery space for the, what the French would
Curating.
call the plastic arts in a way. That was my dream. Now you can do all of that on your laptop. I can do it on my laptop. I cannot do it on my phone. We have to create environments where our wonderful and brilliant British artistic ingenuity is right at the forefront of creation. That doesn't mean that we have to give it all over to AI. I'm not saying that. In fact, I think the more we get addicted to our phones, the more we get addicted to everything televisual, actually the greater opportunity it leads for live theatre. Because there's a marketing angle. All day you're with your screen. Now come see you. Come see this thing in the flesh. I think so it doesn't have to be either or. But I feel that we have to massively invest in ingenuity, in creativity, and then making sure that the young people know that art and gaming is the same thing.
Expand on that. How do you?
If you think about when you're gaming, I'm really bad at that, so I don't really do it very much. But I look at my sons, and these are narratives. These are multiple narratives that are sophisticated. They're employing actors, employing musicians, that are licensing X, Y, and Z. But the narratives are not just straightforward Aristotelian. They're going on levels and layers and the stuff that's coming in there. Now, you look at that and then you look at how popular gaming is across the world. And then you look at how much it earns for those companies. We look at that and go, isn't that great? We can just do that. And then we look at art as if it's this separate, rarefied thing. No, art is for all of us. Art is so that we can express ourselves properly. And even more important right now, as I've said, with our lives being taken over by technology, our expression is everything.
You do, so much in the arts, as we've said. And for a lot of people, what you do as your daily bread and butter, your professional life, is what a lot of people do for leisure.
Yeah.
What is leisure for you? What's leisure for Kwame Kwei-Armah?
Oh, what a lovely question. Leisure for me is going to the Korean spa and jumping between the salt room and the gold room and the pool, lying down for an hour, going back to the salt room, picking up a script, reading it, going into the steam room, coming back, and then saying to one of my children, do you want a game of tennis? And they'll beat my ass every time. And the old man feels older and older every time. Every time we play. But I leave that feeling refreshed. I leave that feeling like I've said to the body, I care about you. I see you. And I know that we're working hard, and thank you for holding me up. I'm going to give you some sweetness every now and again, at least once a week.
Self-care, man.
Yeah, self-care.
We can't argue with that.
No.
It got me through. I discovered it 10 years ago when I was working in New York. And I was exhausted, and a friend said, and I had a pain in my back, and it was all kind of stuff. And I'm not really a keep fit guy, as my belly will attest. She said, and I'll never forget her for it. She said, you should go to a Korean spa. It will really take you down. I went to that thing, and I've never left. There's another one that I go to often where they bury you in sand, and you're in the hot sand. You know what I mean? And you're like hot sand for like an hour. And by the time you come out of that, Rastafari. All you got to
planet.
Okay, so that's your relaxation. That's your downtime.
Yeah.
Because I love, though you are also reading a script because you love what you do.
Yeah.
You love what you do, and you've made your art. Your life is your art, and your art
And how
is
blessed
your life.
are we?
Exactly.
How blessed are we that the thing that we love, we get to do over and over again. And that it affords us a lifestyle, sometimes up, sometimes down, but affords us a lifestyle that says, we got you.
Yeah.
I feel continually blessed, and I give thanks daily that this art form found me and allowed me to express myself through it.
Gratitude is everything, isn't it? It really is. There's a saying in my spiritual practice: suffer what there is to suffer, enjoy what there is to enjoy. And I'm doing a pretty full-on play at the moment, but I know when I leave it, I'm not having to suffer what I'm pretending to do, because my ancestors, our ancestors, lived that, suffered that.
Yes.
And to know that I can leave that, take off the costume, and then I can enjoy the fact that I've shared that story. It's
so interesting, and forgive me for bouncing it back, because even at 18, you had a profound sense of spirit and a profound peace, actually, particularly as we got older. And by the time we got to Casualty, you had a really clear practice and a really clear expression of it. That sense of knowing.
Though, I am an actor. Kwame, because if you remember, now I'm being really personal now, you were the very first person I told that I was going through a divorce.
Yeah, I remember.
Do you remember that? And that was really interesting, that I felt you were the only person I told. And I do think that's where we married, in the sense of we both had a sense of peace and a spirituality that without really discussing.
Yes.
It's quite...
Yeah. But I also think that just because we have a sense of peace and just because we have a spiritual root, it doesn't mean that we're not going to go through trials and tribulations.
Oh, of course not. Never.
And it doesn't mean that we're not going to be down and that we're not going to be up. But it's about your default. Yeah. Where are you defaulting? I've had some whirl of tragedies. And one of the things that I've learned, particularly in the last 5 years, is to not bemoan the thing that has happened, but give thanks for the things that have not. Because at nearly every tragedy, it could be worse.
Yeah. But then, as you say, it can be a default. And I do believe we come into the world with something.
Yes.
But also a lot of things are learnt behaviours. And so you have a learnt behaviour of a way to be and to go to. And that's something everybody would be wise to watch or be aware of. And
we have been trained in this culture to behave in a rampant individualist fashion. And so sometimes that means that you carry your pains by yourself.
Yeah.
As opposed to understanding that you should share.
Yeah, well, there's that balance. I remember always the difference. I was quite young when I recognised the difference between Rousseau's saying, I think, therefore I am, and another saying that seemed to come from an older place. I think it was an African saying. I don't know if it was Jamaican, but it was, you exist because I see you. You're part of we.
Correct.
You're not here alone.
Correct.
If you're not standing with us. I remember there was a story about, it was Muhammad Ali.
Yes.
And the shortest poem in the world.
I was about to say it. Correct.
And his was, and I think
Me
it was...
is we.
Exactly. And I think it was Paltrow, the writer, he was trying to push for Ali saying, me is we, as the shortest poem. And they didn't accept it. They still had Adam, but me is we, it says everything.
Everything.
It says everything.
Everything.
And that is the truth.
Yeah.
Me is we.
Totally.
Oh, and that is, to me, so much about what you are, what your work is, how you've come across. I don't need you to say anything more with that, but I think that is the absolute truth. The work you've done, the impact you've had is phenomenal. You have been able to, even in all the roles that you've done, and I've witnessed this, read things about it and seen that, what you've done is, because sometimes people make a mistake, they're in an organization and it's like everything coalesces around them. They can be brilliant. When they've gone, what's happened? You reach down and bring up. So that's always about making sure there is continuity and consistency, because you are bringing that on. You've got to have contingency. It's no good one incredible brain, because that's not me as we. Me as we, where it's got to be, not just I am the great I am, and when I go, everything collapses. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful gift that you have.
Thank you.
And that you've been able to share.
Well, your work at the Young Vic testifies to that, the changes you made.
Well, thank you. It comes back to, and it's so wonderful, this thing about age, right? There are some things that that ain't so great. But there are so many things that are beautiful. Like to be able to look at you and go, I knew you when you were 18. And you to look at me and go, I knew you when you was 18 and skinny. And
what are you saying? I'm not skinny
no,
now?
I'm talking about me. And but also I judge myself by my 19-year-old self.
Wow.
There is a clarity when you first walk into consciousness. There is a non-compromised view of the world that you have, that as you get older, you begin to go, oh, no, that's not really a compromise. That's just me adapting to the world, or that's just but the truth is that life makes you compromise day by day. The system, the Babylonian system, as we used to say when we were younger, makes you have to make these decisions that when you were 19 and had no responsibility except to fill your brain, you called Jack a Jack. And to this day, nearly every decision I make, particularly when I'm in leadership, goes back to the 19-year-old Kwame. Well, he was Ian then, but the 19-year-old that looked at the world and said, people are pulling the ladder up behind them. I'll never do that. People are not investing in the young. I'm not going to do that. People are looking down on those who are on the outside and not understanding what it takes to even be in the same room as those who have generational wealth. I'm not going to do that. And so every time I find myself slipping, I go back to that 19-year-old and I go, how would he see this move that you were about to do? And so you're absolutely right. And thank you for recognizing that it's important that when I leave an institution, that it has changed in the way that I feel is best for the institution, those of our community, and the community at large.
When you think about self-realization, do you feel self-realized? Or yet?
Rotted.
Is that too? Maybe that is
No.
one.
I love that. I love that. No. Because I haven't been asked that before. That's two for two. Come on now.
She's on fire.
Self-realized. Oh, that's an absolutely brilliant question. And I'll, in the interest of time, I'll try to be to employ as much brevity as I can. The answer to that would be, I am blessed that I have been able to actualize many things that I have dreamt about in my life. The scale of my dreaming, however, is limited to my consciousness. And my consciousness, evidently, is but only a tiny piece of where it really should be. And so the answer is a yes and no.
We have loved having you on our veranda.
Thank you.
And now we want you to tell us about your veranda. Just let us know what's there. Maybe it's the Korean spa. We don't know. But what is on your veranda? What are you hearing? Where are you seeing? What does it look like? What can you see? Just take us there, please.
Well, I'm in Grenada and I'm sat and the veranda is in a property that is somewhere up a hill, and the view from the veranda is directly in front of me. It is of the ocean with a few mountains before it, but I can see the ocean. I can definitely hear it and I can smell it. And when I look behind me, it is of hills and mountains and lush greens. To the left of the veranda are pictures of my family, ranging from my mother to all of my children and my grandson. And to my right is my computer that allows me to follow up on any inspiration the sea or the mountains might give me.
Would you be partaking in a little tipple?
It might be a mango juice. I think probably, though, coconut water. Yeah, and it would be coconut water. I love me some coconut water.
Nice. Thank
you.
Kwame Kwei-Armah, it's been a delight speaking with you today. Thank you so much for joining us on Verandah Talk.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure to be with the both of you. It's empowered my day.
hope you enjoyed our conversation with Kwame Kwei-Armah.
If you did, why not click, share, and send it to someone you think would enjoy it too? Or they're able to find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
I'm Suzette Llewellyn.
And I'm Suzanne Packer.
Verandah Talk is a Bengo Media production.